Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to spend time with Wendy Vittori and me. We're very excited to come to you for the third time that Wendy and I have done a webinar together, and also to let you know that we're sitting right here side by side in a conference room, and happy to be doing this together and telling you this story.
Great to be here with you, Terry, today.
Yeah, so we've just released the Transparency Catalog v2.1, and today Wendy and I are going to talk to you about both the Transparency Catalog, and I'm going to start out with some context and backstory for those of you who are new to Sustainable Minds, and Wendy's going to dig into what's happening at the HPDC, as well as the backstory about HPDs for you folks who are attending who may not be that knowledgeable about them. And then I'll dive into a demo of the Transparency Catalog v2.1 and how you can find every manufacturer and each MasterFormat division and section with HPDs in one click. Just so that you guys know, this webinar is being recorded. We will send you the link to the recording in the follow-up email, and if you would like a copy of the deck, you can request that and we'll send that to you. So without further ado, for those of you who are first-timers to Sustainable Minds is a software company. I'm Terry Swack, the CEO and founder. I started the company way back in 2007 before lots of folks were thinking about green products, but we were thinking about why weren't there many great green products in the marketplace, and we decided to create a company that would build tools and deliver knowledge embedded in those tools to help product manufacturers, not just building product manufacturers, but product manufacturers evaluate the environmental performance of their products in early stage design to be able to make better decisions and bring truly greener products to market. So Sustainable Minds was the first to bring a streamlined, easy to use LCA tool to the market, always in the cloud, expressly for product development teams, business people, designers, engineers to integrate lifecycle thinking into their product development processes. We look at design and marketing and integrating lifecycle assessment and now material evaluation as being two sides of the same coin. Integrating those technical evaluations into product development means that the people making products can actually make higher performing products, and then when they bring those products to market, they have credible stories to be able to tell about what they're doing to improve. When LEED version 4 was introduced in 2012 and we took a look at it, we already had been in the business of making lifecycle assessment simpler and more understandable in product development, and we saw the opportunity to continue to take our approach of teaching people to think differently from a lifecycle perspective, be able to take those results and drive it back into their businesses, to now bring it into the marketing side, into an industry sector, building construction, where there was really a demand that was beginning to increase, rather than other industries where, as you all know, there hasn't been as much demand for greener and healthier products. And so that's how we have developed the business to expand to become a program operator. We have always delivered LCA and now material evaluation services. And going back to that continuous improvement loop of design and marketing, we've always been in the business of delivering cloud-based reporting tools that integrate training and education. So all of our solutions are designed to seamlessly integrate product transparency into product marketing to build credibly greener brands and to build preference and value for those brands. So the backstory on the Transparency Catalog, as I mentioned, In 2012, we decided to start expanding our business into the building construction industry. We developed the first cloud-based EPD. We call ours a transparency report that integrates product transparency into product marketing, and I'll show you a demo. When we get to the demo, I'll show you what those look like. And so between 2012 and 2016, we developed 3 different cloud-based product transparency reporting tools: our transparency report, our material health overview, which Wendy did a webinar with us when we launched that, which integrated the results of HPDs to make those more understandable, and the manufacturer being able to tell their material ingredient stories. And then the performance fact sheet, which we developed with GAF for manufacturers who already have both types of disclosures, again, to make those results more understandable and meaningful, and to be able to add their sustainability and improvement stories. So by the time Green Build in 2016 rolled around, there were finally enough building product manufacturers to, the way I think about it, is to kind of scrape together to start a catalog. There were only 350 brands in North America who had invested in EPDs or one or more of the material ingredient disclosures that at that time were being accepted by LEED and the other green building rating systems. And so we launched the Transparency Catalog in 2016 with the mission to shine a light on every single manufacturer investing in product transparency, so that the architecture and construction industry could reward those manufacturers by finding, selecting, and specifying those products. And we wanted an alternative to the more traditional database design, where a lot of times you show up at a screen and there's a search window and you're not really sure how much content is there. Our strategy has always been to put every single brand right on the front page so that people can scan those lists, find brands they know, maybe find brands they didn't know, right? This is about bringing every brand front and center. And notice up here in the right-hand corner, the Transparency Catalog has always been planned. The roadmap has always been that it will be a specification tool. And I remember we put this on our sign at Green Build. No one would have had a clue, you know, what the heck this was even talking about. But you're going to see how similar the implementation we have today is to this vision that we had in 2016 about what will happen when the market really evolves and there are enough manufacturers and enough disclosures to really turn this into a specification tool, so that we can achieve what everybody who, I'm going to go out on a limb here, that everybody on this call believes in, which is to transform the built environment and to reduce the impacts on the natural environment and human health. So after we'd launched the first version of the Transparency Catalog, and by the way, our methodology has never changed. We are industry analysts. We track every single green building rating system that offers credits for transparency, and we monitor every program operator and every material disclosure program, whether it's a rating system or a straight up disclosure program. We monitor those programs, and when a manufacturer produces a disclosure in one of those programs for the first time, we add them to the catalog. So the catalog is 100% curated by the experts at Sustainable Minds. Manufacturers don't add their own products on their own. We are committed to providing an easy-to-use, well-curated data set, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we do that. So by the time December 2017 rolled around, this was quite shocking. In a matter of 14 months, there were now 961 brands and industry organizations. There was an 85% increase in the number of brands investing in product transparency again, just in 14 months. And so we've not seen such a growth spurt since then. That was when kind of the early adopters were already doing it, and the fast followers were like, okay, we better dive in. This is happening. We better do this. So we realized about this time that we were closing in on the time when we would be able to implement master format filtering and really turn it into a specification tool, but still we were committed to shining a light on every brand, investing in product transparency to make it possible for people looking for brands, which is how people think about products in the beginning of projects. They go to manufacturers' websites. Well, okay, they're all here. Every one of those listings linked to the manufacturer's website. And we knew the time was coming pretty soon when we would be able to integrate that master format filtering, again, to turn it into a specification tool. And so notice in December of 2017, there were about 900 brands and tens of thousands of products. So as we were working on the infrastructure for adding the master format filtering, we also had identified that there was a real disconnect in the market where there were so many program operators. So unlike Europe, where there's usually never more than one program operator per country, any kind of organization can be a program operator according to ISO 14025. And because of that, we've got standards groups, software companies like us, trade associations, getting into the program operation business, which is what has created the disconnectedness and the lack of standardization across PCR development and EPD development. And so we said, at least what we're going to do is we're going to bring every EPD from every manufacturer in North America into the transparency catalog so that at least everything is in one place. And that makes things at least easy to compare initially. And what it also means is that then people can apply their own selection criteria based on the lack of clear direction for how to use disclosures to make informed decisions. Everybody has their own criteria, but getting everything in one place makes that simpler. And this is really what we believe wholeheartedly as a tool maker. We are tool makers. They have to be easy to use, and they have to be integrated into people's current workflow. You can't expect people to change behavior and change the way they work. You have to make it easy for people to transition into new behaviors. So by the time we were able to launch version 2 with the master format filtering in January of 2019, there were 625 manufacturers now in 20 master format divisions, having created almost 1,800 EPDs for North America, which when we did our webinar last month talking about how to use EPDs to make decisions, we pulled these stats in the middle of July. So again, just in 6.5 months, there was an increase of almost a little over 22% of the number of EPDs that were published between January and July, almost a 9% increase in the number of manufacturers who were publishing for the first time, and a 5% increase. Only one master format division was added, which means there's more activity in the divisions where there's already activity. So here we are today. Here's a screenshot. It's close to 1,200 brands. And now let's talk about, well, why did we add every HPD organized by, again, the same master format filtering? And the only reason that doesn't apply is that there aren't so many sources of EPDs. There's only one source of HPDs, and it's by far the leading material ingredient disclosure program for all the reasons Wendy's going to talk about. And I met Wendy when she first started the job, and I've seen what she has built, and really has contributed to the trend that we've been talking about But again, it's all about getting everything in one place, because people who want to improve the environmental performance of buildings also want to improve material health. They want to be able to do it all at the same time. So here's the stats, again, pulled from today. There's more HPDs than there are EPDs. Again, not surprising because of the work and cost required. And you can see, again, not surprising, the divisions where there's the most activity. Finishes is a huge division, lots of sections with lots of manufacturers with lots of activity. So you can see that, you know, it's essentially triple the number of HPDs over the third largest division. And again, no surprise there. A little bit about what we learned from adding all the HPDs and organizing it by MasterFormat. So the HPDC has been great by adding the ability to add MasterFormat division and numbers in the builder. What we learned was that two things, and you can only learn this by trying to harmonize data from different feeds, that the people who make HPDs may not always be the same people who are making the EPDs, and even if they are, there isn't enough care taken to how those disclosures get named. And so we found a lot of times the naming was different for the same product. It made it hard for us to tell whether it was actually they were talking about the same product, because sometimes they didn't even use the correct brand name for the product, so that being a third name. So we had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out if some of the HPDs that looked like they might be HPDs for the same product as the EPDs. We took some time to figure that out. The other thing we found was that the people creating HPDs are not super familiar with MasterFormat, so, or not familiar with the way products get specified. So a number of products were only indicated at the division level, so that's not super helpful. Many were not necessarily in the right section, and so we spent some time reassigning HPDs that clearly belonged in different sections to those different sections, and there will be follow-up to some of these manufacturers to let them know they're going to want to check on the MasterFormat designations to be more accurate. So to wrap up my front story, product transparency is really about product performance. And we just have these two new criteria, environmental performance and material health. The reps from the manufacturers who have to know everything about their products, all the functional performance, all the safety, all the legal, all the aesthetic, all that stuff. Now they also need to know about the environmental performance and material health, because people are making decisions, trade-off decisions based on all those criteria, and now these two criteria. And product transparency, environmental performance and material health are now part of the definition of high performance buildings. So we like to tell people, manufacturers, building credibly greener brands doesn't happen by just producing disclosures, because now you've seen product transparency has moved from early adoption to early mainstream. The value for manufacturers to provide environmental information about their products comes from demonstrating that they understand what the disclosures mean and they know what to do with that information. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Wendy, and she's going to tell you what's happening at the HPDC.
Thank you so much, Terry. I really appreciate being here today. When we were talking about this at the beginning, when we sat down here, I couldn't help but have this story come to my mind. We may have some of our listeners on the webinar today that are, like I am, fans of click and clack the Tappet brothers on Car Talk, which is a very long-running radio show, now in repeats forever, on public radio. And there was all this click and clack, the Tappet brothers from Harvard Square. So I thought we might be, Terry and Wendy, the sustainability and transparency sisters from Kendall Square.
That's right.
Yeah, broadcasting to you. So for those who...
We're going to put it on the window.
Well, we'll try and get a little of that levity in there, because that's always one of the things that made so interesting to listen to.
Well, that means you have to laugh out loud. Exactly.
All right. So anyway, I just want to take a few moments and talk with you. We really appreciate you being in here today, and I want to say thank you to Terry and the team at Sustainable Minds for our partnership. You know, they're a key participant in this growing ecosystem of programs that are all dedicated to helping us all learn about what's in these building products and how can we really get to a point where knowledge is so powerful to helping us reduce and ultimately eliminate the presence of chemicals and substances that are creating perhaps issues for human and environmental health. I think everybody shares that goal, even if they're your products. I worked in manufacturing for many, many years, and I know anytime we became aware of something that we could improve the environmental performance of our products, we really wanted to do that. And that's a great deal about what this initiative is about with the HPD Open Standard. And our theory here is that, you know, knowledge is very powerful for both the manufacturers and the users of this information, the architects, designers, building owners, contractors, anyone who has to select and specify products. And so the HPD initiative was started with the idea of getting on top of this information. As Terry mentioned, we had the idea from the outset that if we could have an open standard that allowed for the open sharing of this information, all regulated on a single specification for reporting, that we could enable much more rapid progress. And so what's happened is in 2012, this was launched. I'm sure many of you on the line were participants in that time. Where we're at today with the overall initiative is a very strongly growing acceptance. HPDC, the HPD Collaborative itself, is the nonprofit member organization. I imagine many of you on the line are members of HPDC, and we want to thank you for your support and your participation in this. We have now over 250 member organizations, growing from the original 23 founding member organizations. That represents about 800 individual participants, and over 500 manufacturers are reporting information following the standard, resulting in over 5,000 published HPD reports to date. And so the future of this is to continue to grow this, really expand this with the idea of making this way of reporting and using the information a de facto industry standard that is deeply embedded in all the different tools. What I like to say, some of the tools we're talking about today are probably a little bit like a bicycle with training wheels on them. You know, at some point, you learn how to do that. You don't need those anymore. Right now, to get going, we need, you know, special purpose tools, but more and more we're focused in our efforts on integrating the information seamlessly into products like Sustainable Minds Transparency Catalog. So that's the direction you're going to see more of us, more from us in the future. You can see right here where we're at with that effort, working with many of the different certification, ratings, libraries, whatever program wants to incorporate this information, both in how they consider the ratings. And so we have one set of harmonization partners sort of here on the left that have the ratings and certifications, where the idea is for everyone to use the information in the same way. And so that means that if I'm looking at one rating system and I'm looking at another rating system, the criteria in those systems are the differences I'm seeing. I'm not seeing a difference that is an artifact of slightly different ways of reporting what in fact is the very same information. And that's what we've been quite successful, I think, in gaining everyone's support, and you know, the adoption continues to grow very rapidly. Over on the right-hand side, you see the growing number of libraries and interpretive tools that are being developed. And this is really so critical to the future, because what we want to do, and I think Terry said this really well, is we want to simplify this for the users of this information. As those of you that have ventured into this space know, the information is complicated. And it takes, to use it to actually inform decision making, as opposed to say, I have the information, I don't have the information, takes a certain amount of training to learn how to use it. And so tools that are rigorous, are science-based, such as you see here, people developing, are going to be super important to having this opportunity to use the information expand to a much broader base of people. And then we also work with partners, you see it more at the top, that are developing some of the science methodology. Many participants from all these organizations are on our technical committees and technical subgroups, so they are directly participating as we develop the HPD Open Standard. Most of you may be familiar with the structure of the standard. It's composed of two parts, a format, a fixed format, and a set of instructions. Those instructions tell you exactly, precisely how to report the information. And we work very hard on that. That's a document. It's all open source, available on our website for anyone to download. And the governance of this is handled by our collaborative through our technical committee, our board of directors, our technical subgroup, our staff. And so we have a consensus stakeholder form of governance for the standard. There are really three things that the standard enables. The first I've talked about is reporting. The second is disclosure. And these are terms that are often used interchangeably. We try and distinguish them because they actually mean different things. You can report information according to the HPD Open Standard and keep it completely private. And we totally enable people to do that. You can go on, use the HPD Builder, create your HPDs, use that information with your partners, keep it private. We encourage people to disclose it to their business partners. And in fact, we encourage transparency because there's so much power in the public sharing of information as we think about how we really accelerate innovation. I come from a background in the tech industry, and many of the tools that we're all using today were it not for public disclosure of a lot of information, we wouldn't be where we are with these tools. And I can tell you, the competition is fierce in the tech industry. But what we discovered there some years ago is what I think we're starting to discover now in the building industry, is that at a certain level, sharing of information accelerates change, it creates new opportunities, it creates a lot of value-added capabilities, and that is where the source of value starts expanding. So it creates a virtuous cycle of innovation that actually creates more and more opportunities for more and more people. So the level of disclosure and transparency, these are all decisions made by the manufacturer, but we really encourage people just to get started, because as more and more people report their information using this standard specification, there's great opportunity even if you never disclose it to anyone other than your internal partners and company. So the manufacturer information goes through this standard. This is a standard document. You can go on our website, you can download this, and you see on the right what the standard format actually looks like. I think I've covered a couple of these points, so let me see if there's something else to point out here. The HPD Public Repository is, going back to Terry's original point about sort of how do I find things, we made the decision that that was a very important thing. If people were looking for these documents, we wanted to have one authoritative source. Of course, they're copied and distributed to many other places. But if the question comes, is this an authentic HPD? Has this been published? There is one place you can go and get the answer, and that's the HPD Public Repository. And what we do is we distribute the information to the other libraries, which removes that burden from the manufacturer. And the manufacturer can just point to the repository. They don't have to maintain all this on their own website and so on.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought this up, Wendy, because we had a little back and forth about this. Sustainable Minds made the decision to only add HPD version 2.0, 2.1, and 2.11 to the transparency catalog, largely because all the version 1s have expired. And so we didn't feel compelled to add those because they're not as useful for
they're not really
specification
active.
today.
Yeah.
No, but, and Wendy pointed out, but they do need to be findable in the repository for historical reference,
Documentation.
and
Projects can take 10 years sometimes.
I was just going to say that we actually do leave disclosures in the transparency catalog that have expired if they've not been replaced or renewed, specifically because that disclosure can still get used for a submittal package because the project is going to be done long after it was specified.
That's the point.
But if that product was specified when that disclosure was valid, then even if it's expired today, it can be used in that submittal package.
Yeah, that's the point. So it is an archive, and so any published HPD will remain available there. Sometimes they're withdrawn, and so we also can point someone to those, but they're going to have to go to the...
So when you're going to have to change the slide.
Oh, yeah.
Others in development.
Right, that's right, that's right. And then we have our builder, and we can continue to see the pipeline growing on that. And we have over 2,000 unpublished HPDs. I also wanted to just touch on our strategic partnership with U.S. Green Building Council. The main focus of this is broadening the access to transparency and material health to the much larger group of participants that the U.S. Green Building Council addresses with their membership, many of whom have yet to start on this aspect of sustainable building practices. And so we announced this in November last year at Greenbuild, and we're going to have some really exciting updates this year. We're working very hard in this partnership to really make it easier, in particular, right? Our focus this year is to make it easier to use transparency documents, whether it's HPDs or any other document, to obtain the LEED Building Products Disclosure and Optimization credit for material ingredients. So we're going to touch on that in a moment, but that partnership is really key. And I think as more and more people adopt this practice, what you're going to see is that it creates its own flywheel. And so there becomes more and more learning, we have more and more feedback, and we can really improve things. So to touch on the HPD Open Standard, we are in an annual revision cycle, more or less. Currently, we are working on the implementation of version 2.2 of the standard, and was publicly released in May, which is when we make the documents available. And we are working very hard to complete the implementation, which means that it's fully implemented in the HPD Builder and the HPD Public Repository and our APIs, so that we can share all those documents with all of the partners in the ecosystem. And that should be next month or in October where that's completed. The primary focus of that is the Supplier HPD. I'm not going to really touch on that much today, but this is going to enable a much broader participation in the supply chain. Version 2.3 is now in development. We expect that to be released in Q2 of next year, and the full implementation to follow in Q2 and Q3. That is really going to be some enhancements. We're kind of keeping that limited to really enhancements to wrap up the version 2 cycle. And then version 3.0 is will be our third major release. It is going to be focused on really 2 areas. We call the print to digital transition, meaning that the design focus now is shifting from a printed PDF usage model to, if that will still exist, I don't want anyone to get alarmed, but that the primary use is looking ahead, and we expect that version 3 for probably a 5-year life cycle, that by the end of that, most people will be using the data in some sort of digital application.
Right.
And so we need to shift the design focus to that digital center.
So it's so interesting that you bring that up, because actually in the webinars we've done since we launched version 2 with all the EPDs, part of getting all the EPDs in one place is to be able to start digitizing that information, because nobody can use data encoded in a PDF. That data has to be live so that it can be used in tools that are doing calculations and modeling and forecasting and all of that. So, you know, this industry is a little bit slow actually in realizing, hey, you know, let's get out of PDF and
we're trying to sort of allow that. You know,
you can't eliminate it. Right.
Really make the digital uses so great.
Right.
And so that takes a focus. As I mentioned, the Supplier HPD is the key area that we're working on to really expand the transparency initiative directly into all areas of the supply chain. We will be having a webinar on that probably in early October once the tools are fully released. It is in pilot right now. Another key area, if you haven't been tracking the development of the standard, is special conditions. There are known issues with certain kinds of standard substances that the screening, for example, a green screen, produces an answer that is not exactly reflective of how that substance might be used in buildings. Typical example would be something like silica dust, which goes through a transformation when it's turned into a plate float glass. And so what we have been working on since the advent of version 2.0 are some alternate ways of reporting that have gained wide agreement through our standard, so that if the application of that is in float glass, for example, a different alternate description can be used. And we're working with all the critical people who are involved with hazard screening and so on, because there's widespread recognition that having that optional way for manufacturers to report those types of materials, that is an example of a form-specific hazard, what we call. Other things are things like geologic materials, stone, wood, that really are not well reported through the CAS system. So that's an area that we've been doing a lot on. And then finally, the certifications and pre-checks. This is an area of great interest to people who use the information, because the number one question is the product described with this HPD qualified for the LEED credit? And so what we do is we are able to pre-check the fields, the vast majority of them. We can do that very well, and we're working, one of our areas of working with USGBC is to see how we might be able to even further streamline that, so that there can be more or less an assurance to a manufacturer if they've entered the requisite data that there wouldn't be a question downstream, because years can pass when something is submitted as documentation. It's in no one's interest to have that happen. So today we have that implemented for LEED, and we are working on similar things for WELL and FitWell and others. I want to just comment quickly on the building products disclosure and optimization credit compliance. As I mentioned, we work very closely with USGBC. We produce aids such as the one you see on the right here. These resources are available on the HPDC website. So if you are looking for information on the LEED credit compliance with HPDs, there are a lot of resources on the website to help you. And so we had some questions from people that had signed up from the webinar on version 4.1 of the credit, and which, as everyone knows, probably is in the beta now. And so we are in the process of updating the LEED pre-check, but we have for 4.1 compliance. It's a bit of a complicated credit in option 2 in particular, but just a quick snapshot. The basic requirement is not changed. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. It must be published, not must be published, in the HPD repository. And for option 1, there are no changes to the basic requirements either. However, a new option was added that a verified HPD counts for 1.5 product credits. So that is very interesting for people coming in to the system to get additional product value. So it counts for 1.5 products. Option 2, some new pathways for compliance have been created. It is really too complicated. We could have an hour-long webinar on exactly how that is, and we're working closely with USGBC to streamline that. But those resources are available on our website. I just want to quickly talk about those other resources in case you have not seen them. The HPDC public website is available. This is the home page. You can go right here on the left. You see Go. If you want to go to the repository, you just click Go. You can put in a search term, and it will pre-fill your search on the repository. You can click for the information on the lead credit right there. You see on the lower right, we have a little bit of a calendar. And there are many other resources that are available on the website. This is how the repository looks. You can search by division, section, manufacturer name, other criteria, lead pre-check, verified. All of those search options are available, and it will bring back a selection of HPDs that meet that. One of the areas that we're actually collaborating with Sustainable Minds and with the MasterFormat is on our Specifiers guide, which is in development. And so this is going to be some pre-configured language that we want to integrate actually into master spec that will be able to be downloaded. And for those practices that have not been able to develop their own specs, it will cover all the transparency documents, not just HPDs, and it will give you a head start. You can always customize it as with any other downloadable template with those specs. We also run seminars. We've been running a discussion series. The next one will be actually in Portland, Oregon. It will also be live streamed, and you just can go onto our website and sign up to be part of that. These are focused on actual user experiences. How do you use transparency documents? They're practitioners talking about what they do. It's not theoretical. It's not scientific. It's down to earth, practical advice. All of these are available on the HPDC website for you to watch. So there are 7 of these discussion series there now. We also have lunch and learns are very popular within the practices for manufacturers to prepare. We have a series of materials that are available to you on our website, and there's a small fee for non-members. They're included in membership if you're an HPDC member.
That's very valuable.
Yeah, and it's the PowerPoints, it's video snippets.
Yeah.
It enables you to sort of custom build a lunch and learn program.
That's good.
We also are working with groups. This is an example, Healthcare Without Harm, Healthy Flooring program, to integrate the HPD as documentation for their programs. And then finally, our newsletter. HPDC members are automatically signed up. If you'd like to receive the newsletter, there's a lot of information in it about what's going on every month. You can sign up on our website. And as you see here on the left-hand side, have a question about HPDs, you can click on our support portal. We actually have a fantastic team that will personally take your query and respond. So if you have any question about transparency and material health practice, we're here to help you. So with that, Carrie, I think we're going to take questions at the end.
Yep, we're going to take questions at the end, but actually, there are 2 right now that seem to go with the flow.
Sure.
Wendy's reading them. If you want to comment on one or both.
Let's see. Regarding Supplier HPD, I put together a company's HPDs, would love more. You touched on the why, but what exactly is the how? This is a component our suppliers would fill out. Okay, the Supplier HPD is going to be a custom-built tool that suppliers will be able to directly access. We're going to roll it out in 2 phases. In the first phase, manufacturers will be able to invite their suppliers into the program. And in the second phase, suppliers will be able to self-activate. And if I'm a supplier and I want to participate in transparency, we want people to be able to move ahead, and they'll be able to, we'll also have in the repository the supplier HPDs available for people to look and find the kind of ingredients they're looking for.
Those folks who are proactive about making their ingredients transparent, that's another...
We want them to be visible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's another way to be a credibly greener brand and get their products specified.
So there's a lot of built-in tools that are going to be part of this. It will be rolling out in production probably in October timeframe. So take a look at the HPDC website. If you're a member or you're signed up as a builder user, you'll be getting a notification of it. And the specifier guide, we are trying to wrap that up and get that out as soon as we can. So hopefully very soon.
All right, well, we've talked about the catalog and we've talked about HPD, so why don't we actually look at the peanut butter and jelly?
Yeah.
No, peanut butter and chocolate.
I'm dying to see this demo myself, Terry.
Peanut butter and chocolate, right?
Yeah,
remember that Reese's commercial?
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So, so before I dive into the live site, I want to just familiarize folks with the component parts of content in a catalog listing, because then it will all come together when you see it in the MasterFormat filtering. So here's just an example listing from manufacturer. You're going to see we have 3 types of listings. We have a featured brand listing, we have a standard listing, and then we have free listings. Every single listing, and even the free listings, link back to the manufacturer's website. So this is all about shining the light, getting visibility for those manufacturers, and making it possible for everybody to find every single one of those. But here in the standard listing, here's an example. These component parts, this links to the manufacturer's website, their logo, there's an introduction, contact links. This is really important for you AECs on the call. This link will typically go directly to the person at this company responsible for product transparency to help you close the loop with them. Please let them know when and why you're specifying their products of transparency information. And at the core of the listing is this table, which is actually a matrix. So the horizontal axis is the MasterFormat division and number and name of that section. And we append the manufacturer's brand name so that people know what the manufacturer calls their products in that particular section. The vertical axis is the brand name and the product name, and you'll see this link goes directly to the product page on the manufacturer's website. And then there's 2 broader columns to be able to display EPDs and all of the material ingredient disclosures the manufacturer has for each of those products, available in one click, all right there. Now, 2 things I want to say about this. For those of you who have used HPDs and EPDs and other disclosures, you know that a single disclosure can represent more than one product, and oftentimes many more than one product. The point we like to make is that people don't specify disclosures. They specify products with disclosures. So they don't care if a manufacturer has one disclosure that covers 1,200 products. They only want to know all the products that actually have transparency information. So this table is designed for the manufacturer to be able to list as granularly as they like every single product that they have available, correlated with the disclosures that cover that particular product. And again, it doesn't matter if the same EPD covers 50 products. The fact that it does is great and useful, but it's telling you which products have disclosures.
This is going to be one of the most important areas, I think, Terry, in the next kind of round of developments. What you're doing is really leading the way on that, because getting precise about the products that are associated with one. We have a variations within the HPD that sort of ground how many. There's a range of variation, but it can be pretty hard to figure out whether an individual product.
Absolutely, yeah. And, because the way we design products is from a user's perspective, the sales reps often don't know which products are covered by a disclosure. And so how would a user know? Okay, so this is actually the only solution today that's available that really lets you, as a user, find every single product and the disclosures that go with it. So now when we start looking at the filtered results, the primary filter, because it's a specification tool, is MasterFormat, division, and then section. The other filters are brands, rating system, and then the ability to find products by name or keywords. And what I want to say about the design of the catalog in the first place is that the slogan that we use, transparency is the new green, is the baseline premise of the catalog. You might wonder, well, what about all the other certifications that manufacturers have? Our response is that every single manufacturer who has invested in product transparency, 99% of them have already gotten those other disclosures, and you can find them on their website, which is why we link back to their website, or other places. But multi-attribute disclosures done scientifically with a common method across all product categories and divisions means that people can evaluate products side by side. Things can be added up, and we finally can look at the total impacts of a building. And so the catalog contains every manufacturer who has invested in transparency, and only their products with transparency information, not anything else, only those ones. So like I said, we have the featured brand, the standard listing, and two types of free listings: manufacturers who have EPDs, and we link to those EPDs, and manufacturers who have material disclosures. Today, we link to every HPD, that's the integration, but we have labeled the type of material ingredient disclosure they have if it's not an EPD, and you'll see more, an HPD, and you'll see more of that coming. But in the filtered results, the results are delivered in the order of listing type, not because the manufacturer is paying more for that. It's not like paid search. It's because there's more content in the results that are going to help people make better informed decisions. So I'm going to jump to the website, and here we are, and I'm just going to show you a couple of scenarios. It's pretty simple, and then I'm going to invite all of you to click around on your own. So, as I mentioned, we will always have every single manufacturer investing in product transparency right there. It's easy to scan, find brands. This is old technology, anchor links. It's not fancy. People can find things alphabetically, and you're going to come in to a listing, and again, it's all standardized. We build these for a manufacturer. It's not a lot of work. We don't believe a manufacturer should have to manage a lot of content someplace else that isn't their website. When a manufacturer creates a standard listing, which they pay an annual subscription for, that's how we make money. Manufacturers pay an annual subscription, free for anybody to use. We have a streamlined process for populating the content, and you can see individual sections one at a time, or you can open everything at once and click on a product and go to the website, learn about that product, and again, click on any of the disclosures and get those right there. Click on the HPD, you're going to get that right there. And what we've done is we've embedded kind of just-in-time information. So we've pulled to the surface information about that disclosure. So for the EPD, you can see we've got the scope and region, whether it's industry average or not. And on the material ingredient side, the name and version number of the disclosure. If it's verified, you'll see we'll add the initials of the verifier. And here at the scope and results, we've added this handy tooltip, that allows people to decode right there. And pretty quickly, they'll start to learn, okay, the scope, this is 100 parts per million, it's characterized, screened, and the highest chemical concern is an LT1, and it's valid through 322. These are the attributes, by the way, that make it qualify for LEED v4. So pretty soon, that's kind of a training wheels kind of thing. People won't really need that, but that's always there. We also have this handy tooltip that also explains the EPDs. This link on every listing goes to this page where we call this the master decoder page. The list of all the rebuilding rating systems that offer credits for transparency, and then below that is the information that describes the types of disclosures from all of the programs that are identified as acceptable and the different levels and the different credits that it earns. So again, a user can go in and select by brand, or let's say a design team is in early stage design for a project. Let's say they're working on a LEED project, and they might say, I just want to see every single brand with transparency information in Division 7. So I didn't even have to pick a section from the front page. I just picked Division 7, and pretty quickly we find out there's 126 brands and over 1,100 products. Now, again, the user has a choice of different tools that are going to help them filter down to just the products that they want to see. So you can certainly page through, click, 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 or going with this scenario, the user can say, well, okay, there's a lot of sections here. That's great. I'm going to come back to that. I'm working on a LEED project, so just show me all the brands that have products that are going to help me earn the EPD credit. And we learned there are still a lot of brands and products, so let me see all the ones that will help me earn both. Well, now there's only 5 brands, but there's still 277 products. Well, what are those 5 brands? Well, there's these 5. And so I can just select the ones that I want to see. And here I am now with just the products from these brands and the ability
That's
to go
very powerful
click
filtering.
in. Yeah,
I think
so
that's going to be super helpful to, you know, these are the improvements to make things much easier
right.
to find and use.
Right. If we go to another scenario, so let's say we're later in design and they're really now working on specification, and they say, all right, in Division 7, I'm actually interested in thermal protection, so I'm only interested in 0720 for now. So I'm going to turn on 0720, and there are 45 brands and 261 products. And we made a decision about how the filtering was going to work, again, because we wanted people to find brands they might not know about and to find products that they might not have known about, even for the same application. So what we decided to do was display every single product in 0721 and let the user turn off what they don't want to see. So let's say the user says, okay, I don't want board insulation, I don't want blanket, I don't want foam in place, I don't want fluid adhesive, and I'm not looking at roof deck or any of these other things. I'm just going to turn those off for now. And now I'm only going to see those products from those brands in those particular sections. And once the user is in this filtering paradigm, you never have to leave. So you can say, all right, now I want to look at Division 8. Same thing, I can use the section selector. I can just say, wow, look, because it said 87 brands. Let me just see what all those brands are, because that's just too many. I like these guys, I like these guys, these guys, these guys, these guys. Let me just see what they've got. And, you know, there might be some brands, and this is what we're hoping, that people find that they've never heard of. Oh, Oregon Door, they're showing up the top. Who is Oregon Door? Well, the user can click there and go directly to Oregon Door's listing, contact them, let them know they like their products, and see everything that Oregon Door has across all the sections that they have products in. So we're at the top of our webinar. There's certainly more.
Do we have any other questions?
There might be a couple other questions to get to the wrap up. Let's see what we've got here.
Will there be the possibility to sign an NDA to avoid disclosure formulation? I assume that people are asking about the supplier HPD there. The answer is yes. The same provisions for confidential business information that we have available to manufacturers in the builder will be available to suppliers in the supplier HPD extension to the builder. So they can do that either through a third-party disclosure process or directly if it's their own information. They'd be able to do hazard screening and pass that along, or they can simply say it's not screened, not disclosed. The only requirement, you know, that is going to be important for suppliers that are providing information, for example, for lead, is that it has to be a complete accounting for the ingredients in the products. So that's pretty important in general for most of the programs, that everything's accounted for, even if it's not disclosed.
All right, well, Wendy, we have kept these good people a little bit past what we promised. And again, I want to thank you for joining me here.
My pleasure, Terry.
Wendy has shared that they've got an exciting fall coming up. We have a very exciting fall coming up. For those of you who have hung out a little bit later, watch for our next webinar. The announcement will go out this week about the opportunity that we've put together with EC3, and again, in service of creating easy-to-use tools that help people take the data from EPDs, turn it into data that can be used for comparisons to ultimately make better decisions about higher performing products. So thank you for sticking around. You'll get the link to the recording. If you would like the deck, you'll be able to send us a note through that follow-up email, and we want to thank you for spending time on this lovely summer day, and we'll see you at Greenbuild, right, Wendy?
Yeah,
okay.
indeed.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.